Well, we're here in studio, Gozo Nation, Gozo family, here at the David Trig Show. This is a place where you can call in and let me know how we can help you live a life of joy in spite of any concerns with fear, anxiety, and depression. As you may know, my story is very popular or very common, I would say, story. A person who grew up a very happy kid, but also dealt with issues of anxiety and depression. But through a lot of help and a lot of tools, a lot of resourcing my mind and changing how I see things, how I view life, I have been able to, as I call it, find the grace amidst fear, anxiety, and depression. So I invite you, Gozo Nation, Gozo family, and Gozo heads to call in and let me know what questions you may have. The number is 562-494-4039. Again, the number is 562-494-4039. And I will answer your questions, whether it's for you, whether it's for maybe a question regarding your child, someone in your life. I want to say up front as a disclaimer that if you have any serious problems with depression, to call 911. If you have any needs for a therapist or a counselor, please call your local therapist office. I am not a therapist or a counselor, meaning in terms of a professional counselor, but I am a pastor. I am also a person, again, who has been dealing with anxiety for many years, but I have found a lot of great tools and ways to help others along. I want to first acknowledge a few people. First, I want to give a big shout out and hello to everyone out there in Colorado. Tell my friends that I recently saw at Iglesia Amistad in both Aurora and also in Arvada, there in the Denver metropolitan area. Big thanks to all of my friends out there in Espanol. I want to give a little say hello in Espanol to everyone. So, a todos mis audientes y mis grandes amigos allá en Colorado, quiero decirles que fue un placer estar con ustedes allá hace unas semanas, en ese lindo día, esa linda tarde, y también me gustó mucho haberlos conocidos. Y quiero invitarle a que todos los días aquí en este programa de Gozo TV y Vida Gozo, usted me llame para que podamos hablar acerca de sus inquietudes en el área del miedo, de la ansiedad, la depresión. Okay, so I want to first address a little bit of some of the most common questions that I get, and perhaps these are things that you yourself have asked before. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, what do you do when a young person, maybe your teenage son or daughter, is dealing with anxiety and maybe depression, or maybe they're showing signs in school of concerns. And so what I recommend is, again, make sure that your child, that your young person is going to therapy, that they are being seen by a professional. But practically speaking, what can you do day to day when they're maybe facing some of these issues? I think the biggest recommendation is to make sure that you don't ask them to stop being worried. In other words, don't say to them, don't worry. That probably is the number one mistake that I see parents make, because when the child or the young person, the teenager is dealing with anxiety, they're not doing it because they want to feel anxious. It's something where they have maybe trauma in their lives. If they do know about how the brain works, there are triggers in their bodies that cause the amygdala, not to get too scientific, to react. And so, in other words, to tell a child don't be anxious, in many ways, I would say, contradicts or denies what they're feeling. So what can you do? That's kind of what not to do. What you can do is to help the child or the young person come up with a plan. What I mean by that is, going back to, again, the scientific aspect of anxiety, or the science behind it. When a child or a person is feeling anxious, the frontal cortex, in other words, what I say, what I call it, this part of the brain, like like wake up, wake up. This part of our brains is asleep. And that's because the amygdala is reacting, and in some ways, it's almost like there's a fire in the back of your brain that's saying, fear, 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 warning, warning, do something crazy, or run. Kind of that flight or fight response happens in the back of our brain, in the amygdala, kind of where our emotional center resides. It's not a bad thing. It's just that there really isn't a bear about to eat you or to devour you. It's just that your brain is telling your body that there is danger. And being that we can't exactly, there is no bear to kill or to run away from, our body then responds in anxiety. So what the child needs is a plan. In other words, here's what I mean. So here's some tips. For example, if your child, try to come up or to discern what exactly are the triggers. Maybe there's one or two. So I remember a young man that I talked to, I counseled. His trigger was running out of gas, that his parents would run out of gas. So the plan that I recommended to his family was to walk this young man through a scenario of what would happen if they ran out of gas. And guess why this young man was afraid? Because it actually did happen one day to his parents. They ran out of gas. And the dad kind of lost it, and the mom was all worried, and a bunch of stuff happened. So here's what you can do. You can say, okay, first, if we run out of gas, I have my phone. So I can call Auntie Sarah. And so you have that first step. Call a friend. Second, you can tell the child, if that ever happens, and let's say our aunt can't answer the phone, then we can always walk to the gas station. And you can point out to the child all the different gas stations that are in the area. And you can say, at the gas station, they have these red tanks of gas, and you can buy them. I have my wallet here. They cost maybe $6, $3, and I can buy one. And then what we can do is put some gas in the tank. And that may be really weird for the child because normally we don't see that happen. But you can just explain that you open the can. And this is, again, very important to walk him through the actual steps of what you would do, as detailed as possible. You would put the nozzle inside the tub or the can, and then you press the nozzle and the gas comes out. And then eventually you stop pressing it or holding the nozzle, and you close the lid, and you walk back to the car, and you then fill the tank with gas from a red gas tank. And then you can go and be on your way. Isn't that awesome? Just to feel that? I mean, it was funny, but I even felt the comfort and the peace of the plan. And you know what does it is the detail. So again, two quick things. Avoid saying to the child, don't worry. Instead, come up with a plan. Now, third, what I would say is to write that plan down for them and give it to them somewhere. So because the child, if he or she is young, let's say they're 6, 7, 10, 11, they're preteens, they will tend to forget the plan, and they will need you or themselves to go over the plan often. So as to let them practice self-healing, or in other words, calming their own fear, let them hold the card. Write down the steps, the plan. Let's say if it is running out of gas, it could be other things. And take that plan, write it down, maybe even laminate it, or maybe if they have a phone, have them write down the plan in one of the notes on their phone or their iPad or whatever they have, and have them keep that with them. That way, when they feel that fear, they don't have to call you or talk to you. I mean, that is always great, and remind them of the plan, but they can just open their phone or open their iPad, or maybe if they just write it down in a piece of paper and in their backpack, and take that out and read that plan. Isn't that great? So hopefully that'll help you as a mom or as a dad to give some guidance to your child. And I know there are many more serious issues than that, but I would say at the kind of the basic level, that is something that you can do. So I wonder who's out here. It seems like I have a viewer, so I'm not sure who that viewer is, but I'm thankful for whoever you may be. And I invite you to let us know how you can maybe ask if you have any questions that call in here at the David Trig Show here on GOZO TV so that we can help you with your questions dealing with fear, anxiety, and depression. Another thing that I wanted to talk about that's sort of kind of, I guess, dealing more with January and with adults and us in terms of how we may feel anxious here as we start February is sort of an update, or not update, but kind of to talk about how January has been sort of a rough month for a lot of people. I've noticed that people are sort of like licking their wounds a bit with January, and so that can cause a lot of anxiety for people. Maybe, you know, like I had one friend who said, my CD hasn't sold. Like I've had a hard time just selling my CD. You know, I thought really I would make a lot of sales. And I was reading on Forbes.com that January has been sort of a bad month in terms of sales. Also, I was reading, I think it was on CNNmoney.com, that the stock market has taken quite a hit compared to how amazing it's been the last quarter. But it's been kind of, things have been off to a bad start here in January. And so you might be feeling some of that. And it might be where you've had maybe a problem with anxiety. So I wanted to just sort of give you some tips on what I am trying to do myself, but also some of the advice that I've been giving other people with regards to January and sales or kind of any creative adventure that you might be embarking upon. And maybe the fact that you're feeling a little blue, like what's going on. So one of the things that I tend to, or I recommend, and I tend to do myself, is to really try to gain perspective by researching things. And so just like I just mentioned, one of the things that I did just this week is to go to Forbes.com, go to my favorite websites, just to sort of like find out what exactly is going on in the world of sales and business. Maybe your world is nonprofit, maybe your world is a creative place. But to just research, sort of like, hey, what's going on? Another thing that I recommend is to ask people, you know, like real people. The other day I was at the gym and I was talking to my trainer, and, you know, she's an entrepreneur. She just opened a business, her and her partner, just a few months ago. And so I just said to her, you know, like, how's it going? And we're very open and we have a good friendship. And she said, well, you know, here's kind of where it's been. And it's been sort of up and down. And my partner sort of has been thinking this and that. And we just got talking. And it was just so great to share stories, share kind of war stories about our businesses and where we're at in the creative process. And she actually gave me a couple tips. She said, I asked her, so what do you recommend, like, I do in terms of perseverance? And she said, well, time and truth. She said, you know, it takes time. They've been at it for 2 years as a business, and they're still in the middle of it. They're still in the thick of things as a fitness center. And then she said to tell the truth, especially she said to customers, that in her field, a lot of coaches and personal trainers, they tend to not be very truthful with their customers and tell them that they're maybe they look better than they really do, or maybe I don't know, maybe in terms of form and more like practical things like how to lift the weights, that they're doing okay. But she likes to really tell people the truth without being mean, of course, because she also was telling me how affirmation is a very important part of fitness. But if someone is lifting the weight improperly and could hurt themselves, the coach is responsible to teach people how to properly lift the weight. And as she was saying that, I was thinking in my head how she's done that with me so many times and how thankful I am. And really that is something that builds trust between her and the customers, and it has with me. So that really was helpful. And maybe that's something that you can apply to your sort of anxious January. Maybe you need to just speak the truth to your investors and to say, here's where we're at. Or maybe just tell yourself the truth. How about that? Like just analyze and say, you know what, this is not working. Or maybe the opposite is true. It's just say, you know, this actually has been going fine. It's just January was a bad month. I was looking at my stats of my blog and visits and that kind of thing. And just January just took a dip. You know, like September, October, November have been really awesome. And I've been really encouraged by that. So thank you all for checking out the David Trig Show and davidtrig.com and Trig Podcasts of Joy and GOZO TV and all these things. But then January just went down. So it was good to just sort of like tell myself the truth. That's just part of how things are. That's what Forbes said. That's what car sales are down. The stock market is down. January traditionally is kind of a low month. And so I just didn't really know that. Or if I did, I forgot. And when you're in the middle of being anxious and worried, you forget everything, right? So it's good to just check your data. Speaking of data, I was also talking to a friend. Kind of these are the 2-3 steps of how to have a more level-headed response to anxious January. I just called it that. One of the things that you might do is to, one of the things that I did is I talked to someone at the restaurant the other day. So again, kind of going back to the whole thing of research and input and wisdom and perspective. So I was having some lunch with a friend, and my friend talked to the waiter, and he said, hey, this place is usually really packed. And there were only like 4 or 5 people there at lunchtime. And so the waiter, the server, told us that in November and December, they were bursting at the seams. Even though the capacity of the place is 210, they literally had like 230 and 250 people at their restaurant, because November and December, that certainly in their, I guess, in their restaurant is huge. It's very, a lot of people. And that, my guess is that's true for most businesses, you know, Black Friday and all these things, right? Christmas and the holidays. But he said that January was really bad, and really it won't pick up again until March, April, May. So even that was really good for me to just sort of go back to as I was looking at my January numbers. So again, that helps with our anxiety. It just helps us to relax and to sort of understand, okay, you know, I'm okay. This is just where it's at, and to sort of take a little mental break. Maybe the last step that I wanted to give you, the 4th step, is that it's important to lick your wounds and to not act like you're a machine or things don't hurt you or they don't affect you. I don't mean like having a public pity party where a PPP, where you're telling everybody how terrible you feel. And, you know, I think it's good to have those honest moments with a few close friends, but to just lick your wounds and sort of admit to yourself that you're feeling bummed or you're low, or that person hurt your feelings, or that presentation that you did could have been better. And what I mean by licking your wounds, again, I don't mean like feeling bad or sorry for yourself. I mean, it's good to learn. But what I mean is to just sort of like pamper yourself, I guess, to go out to eat and enjoy that $25 dinner. You know, like I have my favorite sushi place that I go to, and it's a buffet and it's expensive. But when I'm feeling blue, and it's not like I always do this when I'm blue, like it's not some addiction. But my point is that whenever I do kind of get into my little mode, I treat myself to something special, something I tell my wife, I do it with her, or I go with my children, go with my family, and just go out to eat. Or maybe I go see a movie. The point is, lick your wounds in a nice, safe way, just to sort of mend and literally just kind of take care of yourself. So I wonder what tips you have. I wonder what things you're thinking about. So again, welcome to the David Trig Show. I'm here to help you. I'm going to be here till about 1:10, another 5-6 minutes, just to give you an opportunity to call in, to let me know how I can help you. You can text me, and you can also email me any of your questions that you may have regarding how to overcome fear, anxiety, and depression. The number or my email is trig@davidtrig.com. And you can also text me, and I will give you the number here in a second. You can also go to my website and leave a comment there, and I can read the comments. Or you can just be on this live screen here, and you can tell me if you have any questions or any thoughts. So, well, let's see. Another thing that I've been thinking about regarding fear and anxiety is, well, I want to actually just, again, go back to my time in Colorado and how great that was. It was really awesome. I think that what I learned being there was just the value of talking about teens. And I remember talking to a couple that works with the teens at the church where I spoke, and it was really great just to hear their love for not only for their teens, but also for the teens of the church. And so I connected them with a few resources of places that have some tools on how to talk about cutting and depression and issues of violence in the home, so that they can help some of these young people with their own issues. But you know, I really enjoyed that time. It was just such a wonderful experience to be there and to help those families with their questions. I remember at the end of the whole day, we had a Q&A in the lobby of the church where I spoke. And it was just great just to walk people through what I'm learning, to hear their concerns. I remember this one young guy who said, how do I have the strength to do all that I'm supposed to do? And we talked about some things, and I thought that was a very awesome, honest question. So I think that sometimes we forget that in order for us to do all these things, it takes courage. I mean, we can read all the stuff that we want to read, and we can watch blogs and programs like this and hear all the right stuff. But if really we're lacking the courage to do it, we're not going to get anywhere. A lot of times, that's what we need, is the courage to really persevere. And so what I told him when he asked me that is, I said, well, what do you think is keeping you from having that courage? And he was telling me how he feels that ever since this is actually kind of a twist, I guess. He said that ever since he started going back to church, that he feels like he's become more fearful, because he feels like God doesn't want him to succeed, or that he has to die to everything and surrender everything. And so it was really interesting, because I have felt the same way at times. I have felt, I think all of us can look back and think of times when, you kind of come to that place of surrender to God, and you really feel like you want to do all the right things for God and church and your faith and loving Jesus with all your heart. But then it seems like everything blows up, like things get worse. So I was helping him. He was a young guy, just very bright. You can tell that he has a bright future. So maybe if you're listening out there, I just really want to tell you how proud I am, and I was at that moment, of your courage to actually ask the question. But what I told him is how sometimes when we give up everything, that even though we may feel like we've arrived, that there's still more work to do, and that the surrender is only part of the equation. That truly God wants us to not only surrender, but to have a life of joy and a life of abundance and a life of victory. Like I said, there's Friday, the death, but then there's Sunday. Sunday's coming. The resurrection is coming. And so we kept talking. At the end of the whole 2-3 minutes that we spoke, he kind of revealed that something had happened in his life where in some ways, he was feeling guilty over. I don't know if it had happened after he became a Christian or before, but we briefly spoke about that. And it seems like that was the fear that he had, that maybe if he did take a risk again in his business and his career, that thing in the past would come back. And so we talked about the power of faith and of surrender includes going back to that situation, whatever that was, and to actually let God have access to that. Because what I have found is that anxiety many times comes because we have kind of, I guess, skeletons in our closet. And who doesn't, right? We all have kind of those hidden parts of our lives. And many times the anxiety that we feel in life comes because we haven't dealt with those things in our past. And we might be going to church, might be doing all the right things, again, listening to all the podcasts and reading all the books and having like this awesome attitude. But inside, underneath all that busyness, still lies these 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 skeletons and these ghosts of our past that haunt us. And I don't think that's something you can go back and dig out. I wouldn't recommend that, actually. But what I have found is that at some point, eventually, those things do bubble up, and they they sort of catch us off guard. And so then we have to deal with them. And so I hope that that helped that young man. I hope that helps you with maybe if you're feeling anxious and you're wondering, wait a minute, I'm doing all the right things. I'm succeeding. I got the job. I quit my old job. I started my business. And why am I so anxious? And it might be that God is taking you deeper and kind of wanting for you to drill down, I guess, as some guys say, on certain areas of your life. And mostly it's character stuff. I mean, it's anger, it's addictions, it's issues of control, of perfectionism, of lying, of just our attitudes, our lack of humility, pride. I mean, you name it. It's all those kind of 3 or 4 things that we deal with. And I'm so thankful that in many ways, the grace of God won't let us just sort of skim over those things. But through life, through pain, through, even an injury, you can suddenly get in touch with that past and that pain in your life, that trauma, those triggers, what I call the foo fighters, the family of origin fighters, the F-O-O, foo fighters. Those things in our past that we sort of tend to ignore. Speaking of that, just as I wrap up the show here, I have 5 more minutes here at the, by the way, welcome once again to the David Trig Show and to GOZO TV and Trig Podcast of Joy. I'm here till 1:15 Pacific, about 4 more minutes, answering your questions regarding how to overcome fear, anxiety, depression, how to have more joy in your life. I'm your host, David Trig. Thank you so much for being here. And I will be here Monday through Friday. I don't know exactly what time, but I'm trying to just kind of try different things and see how I can get this show to be on your computer screen, in your Facebook page, on my Facebook page, and to be able to interact with you and get to know more of you. But where was I going? I have no idea now. I think I was going to talk about something really awesome. I don't know. I did want to tell you something that as I think of wrapping up here, I'm going to be talking to an intermediate school in Santa Ana about the conference that I do called the Finding Grace for Anxiety Conference. So look forward to that. Hopefully, if you're in the LA area, Orange County area, I'm not sure exactly when, we haven't picked a date, but it might be as early as April, or it might not be till May, end of the school year. So I'll be looking forward to that. I'm also, as I mentioned, on Facebook, and I have my Trig Podcast of Joy that is basically the same program, but on podcast form, like a radio program. I also wanted to invite you, if you want to receive a text, what I'm doing right now to kind of like let people know of this show is to text them so that they know that I'm on in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And basically the way that you sign up is you go to my website, davidtrig.com, and you can just click on this little area that I have there called subscribe. And you can then add your info to my email list so I can send you a quick email to say, hey, we're going to be on in 20 minutes. Obviously, eventually, we'll have to just have this be a steady thing so that you can know exactly when and what time I'm coming on. And eventually, hopefully, of course, I'd like to be on all day from, I don't know, 11 to 1 or something like that so that we can be just in front of you at a consistent time each day. So I wanted just to thank you, GOZO Nation. We're going to just wrap this up for being here. And I think we had 1 viewer this time, but I'm glad for whoever you may be for being here. I hope that the audio and all of the things came out okay. I'm going to work out some of the kinks here after we do this show. Go to davidtrig.com, my GOZO Nation, to leave your comment, leave your question, any thought on there. There's all of my Twitter and Instagram and all of those things, how you can interact with me. If you want to receive one of my GOZO mugs, which you see right behind me, please also sign up for that. They're only $7 for this beautiful mug that has my signature on it in the bottom. And also, if you want to pick up a GOZO t-shirt that says I am a GOZO head, then also go to my website and you can pick up some of those things. If you want to receive my article as published on Leadership Magazine, Leadership Journal, called High Anxieties, How Anxiety No Longer Defines Me, please, again, go to my website and you can sign up for free, and I will send that to you, PDF form, through email ASAP, my free gift to you for being such a faithful and committed part of the David Trig Show. Well, thank you so much, Gozo Nation, for this time together. I hope that you enjoyed some of the tips. Listen to my podcast. Listen to all of the different, again, watch some of the pictures and videos that I have out there for you. And I would say most of all, just know that if you're dealing with fear, with anxiety, with depression, that you're not alone, that you can count on this being a safe place to interact and to grow, and most of all, to experience joy in life. Because as the scriptures say, my favorite verse, it says, Psalm 30, verse 6, though there's pain in the night, joy or gozo comes in the morning. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. For you, one viewer that's out there, you count, whoever you may be. Have a great rest of this day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.